So, usual format. I've had a lot of people send stuff in to me, so thank you for everyone that did that. First of all, card from Nick. I don't know if you want to say anything, Nick.
Yeah, no, it's been in some ways a bit of a quiet month. The highways development that has been our major focus to try and get recognition of aviation in Gloucestershire and Dr. Jenner's flight, they've now suspended all meetings until the new year. It might be because of the weather problems they've had with their schedule. So we're still progressing, putting memorials. They've accepted the idea that we put forward in the next slide. Paul, that's it, yeah. We proposed that design, which they are very favourable for. It's really working out whether we can get the funding for it and whether the local councils will allow such a monument to be put there in place of the old air balloon pub. I've recreated the plaque that was across the fireplace in the air balloon pub. No one knows where it's gone to, but it actually is the historic link saying that Jenner's air balloon in 1784 was a significant achievement. We believe it landed near there on its second flight, and it also celebrates the Walter Powell, who unfortunately disappeared without trace from Bridlington Bay when his passengers jumped out of the balloon in strong winds, and the anchor came away and he went out with his balloon, but the passenger got out. So always make sure your passengers jump out too early. So yeah, as I say, we'd love to know where that went to. It was a cast iron plaque across the fireplace, so I've recreated it for exhibitions and things. Yeah, the updates on developments in Cheltenham, Gloucestershire. The Martins factory, which I've outlined in a red circle, is probably the most outstanding building there. It's due for demolition, but someone I know who works on the site said if they demolish it, they're going to have to close the main Cheltenham line between Cheltenham and Birmingham. So the cost of doing that might save it, or they might have to do something. Also, the art building, which has got to be put in as part of the development, that outline is the whole of the Martins work, H.H. Martin's work, which is going to be redeveloped into a housing estate. But the art collection hasn't got a place now under the development because there's so much money. It might have a life, but we'll see what happens on that. Staverton Airport, there's been a lot of reports that it's still going to be taken over by housing. The council deny that and say just due diligence is being done by the property surveyors going round. The CAA reports 68,000 flights were done in 2023, so it's a very active airport with its 350 acres. And the council have put a 50-year covenant on the sale of anything to try and maintain it as an airport.
Right, thank you very much.
And this is a personal appeal for my project on my scimitar. Does anyone know the modification that Flight Requirements Unit did on the scimitars and later the Hunters to put a Harley light in the front? Because when someone's taken the radar trays out of it, I just want to know what the modification was to put the Harley light in on, this is the nose I've got for 267. So anyone who's got any information, I'll be gratefully received because there's nothing being documented.
That's great, thank you, Nick. Yeah. There's some photos and an update from Blackbush. I'll read what Peter sent to us. Blackbush Heritage Trust have procured the ownership of Vickers Valletta VX573. The plan is to bring her back to Blackbush by the end of May next year and have her back on her undercarriage by the end of June. Internally, she is pretty complete, but we'll need a damp sponge, a good vacuuming, plenty of dusting, and several cans of Pledge. Externally, her original paint job was stripped by the RAF Museum, so this will have to be renewed sometime in the future after being carefully checked for damage. We would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone at the RAF Museum for their faith in us to take good care of her for future generations. This we promise to do. And then there's an update on Vagabond. Since the last meeting, we've started repairs on the outer wings, which have received a lot of damage during her life. Unwanted metal panels have been removed and old paint on the top surface removed. Work has started on the rebuilding of the rear of the fuselage, which was badly damaged when the air conditioning system was fitted and the fin and rudder fell off. This alone, we believe, will take us 2.5 years to complete. The cockpit team have been busy CAD modelling the instrument panels, acrylic versions, which is there, have been produced to check firstly fit of instruments and secondly the fit into the cockpit itself. We have over half the instruments but are still looking for a few. Yesterday the Yanks Air Museum, Chino, USA donated a few we are missing. They will be arriving in the near future. And then some photos from Tangmere. They're looking at doing a cockpit meet next year, so they're interested, and anybody would be interested to go to them to do a southern cockpit meet. And they haven't painted their sea vixen in a ground attack tactical camouflage. It's actually primer, but they're repainting it. Some photos from Dougie about the Blackburn at Beverley at Solway. Recent works. I don't know if you want to say any more, Dougie?
Yeah, that was the day when we were turning the wings over. It involved two 40-ton cranes to manoeuvre them without damaging them. We managed to do it in the afternoon, join them together with some, I think it's 300 bolts that hold them together. The fuselage has been undercoated, one side of it. All the underside of the wings been painted. We've got to work on the top, and hopefully by the end of the year we'll have the cockpit on. And this centre section wing on top of the fuselage. We're still trying to stop the rain getting into the cockpit. The leaks all over the place. Roger's been busy inside the cockpit. He's done every instrument up, put every label back on. The floor's yet to be painted. We've had the seats reupholstered, and it's going well.
It is amazing, and a different level, obviously, the size of it.
Yeah. It is a big job, isn't it? There isn't that many people working on it. I'd say maybe a dozen people working on different jobs. We were knocked back a lot with Alvin, the storm at the beginning of the year, when it lifted the outer wings and smashed the front end of the cockpit up. We've had to replace the glass at the front with perspex. There's a bit of damage to the fuselage, but that's all been repaired. So we're back on track again. But it did knock us back maybe 6 months.
Is there anything you're looking for, anything missing that you'd like to
The big
procure?
for it, big warehouse. People say we're going to put a building over it. Well, the RAF didn't put them in buildings, did they?
Exactly. Thank you, Dougie. Westland Whirlwind Fighter Project have had some progress recently. They've put the fin on the fuselage. And also the towel. The Aircraft Restoration Group, thank you Mike for sending some photos in. The Hunter that came from...
Yeah, that's at Mr. Rebel's farm near Pershaw. He had 5 jets sitting in his yard where the bramble hedge was trying to repossess them. That's putting the fuselage into our workshop when it first arrived. And it had an old tail fin on it for some reason. And that's basically as it is at the moment. The fuselage has all been treated, rubbed back, painted, cockpit's been sorted out, ejector seat, a new canopy, and it's virtually ready for the wings to go back on.
I mean, considering what it looked like, it's not needed any sort of reskinning or anything like that, has it? Or
No, we've had to do a couple of skin repairs, but basically it was the white paint area. It looked like Artex. I don't know what happened. It all blistered and bubbled up, and it was a hell of a job to get it off. We took the whole aeroplane back to where that looked.
yeah. That's great, thank you. Some photos from Kai. His ex-Danish Hunter E412. It was in the factory at Brooklands, but it's now been removed. That's of it being taken apart. And taken out of the factory exhibit. And it's going to a new home. Do you want to add any more, Julian? Or? No?
It's going back to Denmark, hopefully.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, where it originally served.
So it's in the RAF scheme, but it's actually ex-Danish. And that's a photo that is supplied of obviously in the Danish Air Force. And when it was a gate guardian at Booker, where he got it from. And an update from Brooklands, the space that the Hunter has created is where the 1121 is going to go. And then other heritage. Frank, do you want to interject?
Yeah, it's just really an update to what Julian was saying about all history recordings. We've been doing them for quite some time now, and they're all about aviation-related topics, so various employees, pilots, enthusiasts and veterans, we've got them all. We've currently got 39 episodes. We're trying to schedule at least one a week, so they're coming out thick and fast. But several volunteers have been involved in doing it, one of which has attended the actual training that Julia mentioned. We just received an Arts Council Museum Development North Open grant to upgrade our equipment. It's quite a substantial grant. We've got a dedicated studio, we call it the Anson Room, because it overlooks an Avro 707 and not the Anson we've just received from the Royal Air Force Museum. So yeah, please have a listen. The link's there at the bottom.
That's great. Yeah, thank you, Frank. And so there's quite a lot of groups now doing stuff on either YouTube or podcasts, etc. So it's good to see. The de Havilland Air Museum were awarded the Preservationist of the Year award by the National Transport Trust. It's receiving their certificate and award. Ed China at the back from the TV. I don't know if you want to say any more.
No, this is another really important bit of recognition. The National Transport Trust is the only heritage organisation which goes across all elements of transport, maritime, air, road and rail. This set of annual awards, again, there are really important ones like Preservationist of the Year, but they also fund a number of restorations, give cash grants towards restorations. It's well worthwhile following what the National Transport Trust is doing. Applications are currently open for next year's awards. It's another one where grants of up to £1,000 are made to groups who are doing restorations. And the aim, especially with the NTT Awards, is to try and help people over the line towards getting a restoration finished. I have an interest. I'm the Vice President of the Trust, trying to increase the visibility of the NTT Awards. Anything which can put cash in the hands of people who are doing worthwhile restorations is something to be encouraged. And we're always looking for new members of the Transport Trust as well. It's a great organisation, and it's great to be able to recognise people like the De Havilland Museum with probably the longest restoration. That restoration started about 50 years ago. They finally got it to the stage where the aeroplane can be shown off to the public in that form. But yeah, great that NTT was able to give some assistance and to recognise this fantastic achievement.
Yeah, thank you very much. So that's all I've got. The next person, I believe, is Peter. Or no, Ross. Yes, Ross.
Yeah.
Do you want to come on?
Oh, God, yeah.
No.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I believe I'm known to most of you in the room. It's a delight to be back in the city of my birth, and also the city where I made my first engineering mistakes. Swiftly corrected, I might add. I am conscious of the fact that time moves swiftly for all of us, and the chance to renew for the next generation is uppermost in my mind. So what I've decided to do is form a small company called Aviation History UK. And I bought the domain, and thanks to a very bright young IT person called Joe Clark, 4C Creatives, turned out a nice website for me. And the idea is that, having been involved with aviation museums at local, regional and national level, and also quite frighteningly entering my 56th year in aviation, which is, yes, frightening. It's about time I started to put a little bit back into this sector of ours. So consequently, Aviation History UK will be able to provide smaller museums, especially with its volunteer base, the expertise that you might need with regard to acquisition and deacquisition of objects, dealing with the oral histories, and many other aspects of expanding your world. This will come at little to no cost to you. Occasionally, if I have to travel to a site, I might ask for a little transport. But the chairman will tell you that I have been known to be tempted by fish and chips. So please understand, I'd like you to go on the website, have a look around the photographs, and I'm delighted to entertain questions and queries from you via mail or phone or whatever. I want to put back something into the sector that I absolutely loved and I've been involved in for more than half a century. Thank you.
Right.
Quick one on Norway?
Yes.
Very quick one.
I'm conscious that even the revised time never alter the timetable because it just keeps on altering. So Peter's just going to give us a very quick report on a recent visit to the Norwegian Air Force Museum.
Right, we have another typo because I'm actually Davison, not Davidson, but don't worry. Can we just, it's very few slides, so it's primary reason, I mean, most of us, and certainly I, have been to most of the standard mainland world or European museums, but Bodo, just inside the Arctic Circle at the top end of Norway, is an unlikely destination for most of us, especially with the cost of living in Norway. But this year I did manage to press my other half to say, Norway's a lovely place, I've never been here, let's go and have a look. It's the Norwegian Air Force Museum. It's in Bodo. It's on the perimeter of the Bodo Air Force Base and the headquarters of the Widerøe commuter -8 airline. The building itself is reminiscent of a two-bladed prop. So you have a central tower and then two wings, one of which, although it's the Air Force Museum, is civilian and one is military. And it's only a very quick whiz, but might tempt somebody to go and have a look. That's the central piece. It's only about 500 yards from the end of the runway. So for people who like to watch the activity, it's only really good at one end because the coastal end is 3 miles down the road. It's a fighter base. There are about 40 NATO shelters on the other side of the runway which appear to be out of use, but in fact housed, I think 34 F-16s are in there at the moment, out of use, potentially maybe for Ukraine, but who knows. But the military use it as a stopgap, but they don't have a base squadron operating at the moment. Lots of domestic flights, and as I say, there's a viewing area here. If you walk upstairs, you can stay up there and watch, and there are displays about air traffic. But the meat of the stuff is in the collection. It's a BAPC registered aeroplane, 590, Hurricane on a stick. Not worried about the weather because it's a replica, but that greets people as they come down the main road to the airport, so they can see the fact that the museum is there. And as I say, has relevance. There is one other BAPC item on their indexes, but it's currently off show, so you can't get everything. In fact, about 2/3 of the collection is not on show, and because it's a military base with lots of NATO and important affiliations, apparently most of it is underground. You can see one entrance into a bunker, the other side of the runway, beside an ex-German Air Force Phantom that isn't listed with them, but if you look at the listing of what should be there, around 2/3 of the exhibits are actually off view, and because they're on a military base in an active airfield and underground, even beyond me with my persuasive attitude. Next, on the civil side, we talked about lighting. Maybe the Norwegians realise the cost of bright lighting. It is extremely gloomy, but dramatically lit. Junkers 52 immediately thought, I didn't know they operated up there. It's actually an ex-Portuguese Air Force Museum, one of the ones that was laid out in Alverca in Portugal in the mid-70s, rescued, brought back and painted up in contemporary marks. And in fact, you can see underneath, to show the date difference, we have an Islander tucked in the back there. And there's the Islander. That was one of two operated by Norwegian Air Services in the northern part of Norway. And it's there's very few examples, considering what an important British civil aeroplane that the Islander is. You shouldn't really need to have to go to the Arctic Circle to see one in museum condition. Air Force seeking in the end there, because obviously the military end was slightly overfilled, but there's a good selection of biplanes, home builds. The fuselage at the back is actually ex-Peruvian airframe, but has been painted up in Brafton's colours. There's a few things you can walk in. There's microlights. A really good mix. That's the civil end. The main entrance hall has an F5 in dramatic pose, which was in fact a ground instruction aeroplane at the base many years ago, and has been displayed dramatically because this is floor level, so there's only about 3 inches between that tailplane and the floor. But Norwegians are very polite, very well behaved, and you don't have to put signs around it saying don't bang your head on the wingtip. So this is the central area near the shop and a very good restaurant. Moving on. Looking into the military zone. Dramatic Junkers 88 up on a raised platform, configured as found. It's one of two airframes they have, the other one being in store. So it's viewable from above, from parallel if you're on there's a disabled ramp going down the right-hand side of this propeller blade building. So you can see it from a number of angles. But a very dramatic use of, sometimes we'd say, well, why don't you restore it? Well, that tells you even more than a fully restored replica or rebuilt. That would probably be beyond their resources. Anyway, they have a mozzie, so all hail to Mr. Sharp, another mosquito on show, and that's looking past it onto the main lower level. And if we don't really get shot, so I'll keep moving. They also have an ME-109, again one of two on their books. This is the one that's been restored, the other one is shown as under restoration. But good to see, and in parallel with the World War II theme at this end. And the FW-190, which came from Texas, Rio Hondo Museum, brought back in, I think, 1988 it was restored. I'm not quite sure which date it crossed the Atlantic. But again, there's not many museums in Europe, and a lot of them would kill for having a 109 and a 190 to display. And Catalina, ex-Canadian Civil, again, brought over very important for Norway's coastal command, etc. Squeezed it in. It's amazing how many you can squeeze in. One of the mildly frustrating things for a photographer is their graphic interpretation are on these orange posts, which are beautifully lit and carry fairly small text, but do give you the information. But it means it's almost impossible to get a view without having one of these in the way. But apart from a general increase in dramatic lighting, once you start walking around, it really is quite a pleasure to witness. And they move into the 21st century most. We've got an F-16A retired, a Sabre, there's an F-84 fuselage, general selection of 1950s and 60s fighter material. And what is a surprise is a U-2. So apart from the Duxford one, this is the only other U-2 in Europe, to my knowledge. It was unusual in that it was preserved in Edwards Air Force Base. It was converted into a two-seat, one of the first of the two-seat conversions for flight training, etc. But then before it came back, or before it was acquisition to go into Bodo, it was returned to a single-seat configuration. Because of its immense width, it is extremely difficult in that low light to get the depth of field necessary for a sharp picture, so I apologise for that. But if you want to see a U-2 in the Arctic Circle without getting shot, it's probably a good way to do it. And I think that concludes. Yes. Okay, thank you very much.